Automakers are in focus amid escalating coronavirus concerns. Now, Moody's is lowering its worldwide estimate on global auto sales for 2020, predicting a decline of 2.5%. We have Brian Cheung here to break all this down. And Brian, obviously, a lot of these automakers were on edge just in terms of the fact that they were already seeing a slowdown over in China, and then the coronavirus fears are only exacerbating that.
Right. So before the coronavirus issues, Moody's had already projected a decline of 0.9% for 2020. They have since exacerbated and increased that projection to negative 2.5% for the year. They say this is on two fronts, right? You have the demand for autos because that was a kind of secular trend that they were already seeing in many corners of the world, specifically in China, but then also because of the supply chain. Now, when you think about how important the Chinese economy is to the supply chain of building a lot of these cars, even in the United States, where, for example, GM said that they might be worried and are watching about the production of trucks that are actually manufactured in North America, but rely on auto parts from China. That has been an issue for other automakers around the world. When you consider that Fiat Chrysler, for example, they actually halted operations in Serbia due to a lack of parts that were coming from China. Ford has been struggling to keep its factories open in China, and GM recently halted a production plant in South Korea and has had to actually delay the restart of its Wuhan, China plant to March 10. They originally sought to open that up 2 weeks ago. So all the global automakers right now are really struggling to see exactly what will become of the coronavirus. They don't have any clarity, even on timeline basis, of when they can reopen those plants.
And Brian, it's interesting here. One of those automakers that we've talked about a lot on this show recently is Tesla. Now, we've seen a major run up in the stock price over the last several months, but it looks like demand there for their new cars is really starting to tank, at least from January, or I guess from December to January.
Yeah, so a report showed that Tesla's registrations, because in China you have to register all of those vehicles, that registrations for vehicles actually fell 46% to about 3,500 units in the month of January. That's relative to the month of December, so month over month. It is important to note that because of the way that they measure it, it's a little different because the Lunar New Year did fall in January this year. Last year, or rather it was in January this year, and then last year in 2019 it was in February. So it's maybe not the same vis-a-vis month when you compare year over year. But regardless, Moody's is already projecting a 2.9% drop in auto sales, specifically in the China market, irrespective of EV. This is the whole pie itself. So when you talk about Tesla, this large company that had recently began production of the Model 3 in China and at its Shanghai Gigafactory location, this is obviously a big concern, which is why you see the stock sinking by over 10% today. But important to note, Tesla had that remarkable run up this year. So yes, even though it did have quite the plunge in the past few trading days, it's still up 61% year to date. So not that people are necessarily crying over it. But
it doesn't look that bad, trading at $693.94 now bucks a share. All right, Brian, thank you.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.